Welcome back to the deep dive. So, I want to start today by asking you, our listener, just a brutally honest question.
Yeah.
Do you ever look at the sheer volume of information coming at you? New tech, endless emails, new research, and just feel this crushing sense of inadequacy. That moment where you forget some key piece of information and you just conclude, my brain is just failing me.
That feeling of intellectual inferiority is so incredibly common. We're in an age of information overload, right?
Completely.
And when people struggle to hold on to that information, they immediately assume the fault lies with the hardware. They think their brain is, I don't know, defective or just helpless.
It feels like a natural jump in logic, but is it accurate? I mean, we're all being inundated, we're scattered, we're forgetting things we just read 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
But the mission of this deep dive is to ask, are we truly incompetent, or are we, simply untrained in operating the most sophisticated gift we possess?
That is the crux of the source material we analyzed. The research is, well, it's unanimous on this. The human brain is dramatically underestimated.
Underestimated how?
It processes information faster than any computer we have right now, and its storage capacity is functionally limitless.
Okay, wait. If the brain is this hyperspeed, limitless hard drive, then we shouldn't be struggling at all. So why the constant frustration?
The sources, they really point to two central problems that we're going to unpack.
Okay, two big ones.
Exactly. First, our beliefs about what we're capable of, they're flawed. We've installed a limiting mindset.
And the second?
The second is that almost none of us have ever been taught the method, the actual technique for focused thinking, for active remembering, and for deep learning.
So we have three core questions guiding us today. First, are we genuinely deficient, or do we just carry a deficient belief?
Right.
Second, if the brain's so powerful, why do we struggle? And the answer you're saying is the lack of method. And third, are we willing to take responsibility for upgrading our personal operating system? Let's dive straight into that first roadblock, the power of belief.
The primary struggle, it really happens when people conclude, I have a bad memory. They internalize that struggle and they turn it into an identity.
Which makes sense, right? If the output is poor, you assume the machine must be poor. But tell me, why does this self-talk matter so much? Why is believing I am forgetful so damaging?
What's fascinating here is the sheer mechanism of it. The literature we looked at describes belief as a kind of fundamental command.
A command.
Yeah, like a command running silently in the background of your mind. So when you repeatedly say, I am forgetful, you are actively instructing your brain's processing power to go out and validate that statement.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It absolutely is.
But hold on, if the brain is wired for survival and efficiency, shouldn't our innate programming fight that negative command? Why would it just default to self-sabotage?
See, it doesn't see it as self-sabotage. It sees it as efficiency. It's following the clearest instruction it receives. If you tell it, this information is too hard for me to hold, the brain just registers that as a command to stop exerting effort on retention. You're imposing a psychological limitation. You're kind of closing the door from the inside.
That perfectly sets up the analogy we loved in the sources.
Yeah.
The story of the $10,000 screw. It just illustrates this difference between effort and precision.
It's a perfect illustration. It's about value based on method, not, sheer brute force.
So tell the story.
The story goes that a massive power plant shuts down. None of the engineers there can figure out the problem, so they call in an external expert.
A specialist.
The specialist, exactly. This person walks over to this huge electrical box, takes out a small screwdriver, turns exactly one screw, and the entire multi-million-dollar system just springs back to life.
And then the invoice comes back for $10,000. The manager is, you can imagine, outraged. Why would turning one screw cost so much?
Right. And the expert's breakdown clarifies everything. It says, turning the screw, $1.
Okay.
Knowing which screw to turn, $9,999.
So connecting this back to learning, what's the lesson here?
The lesson is that most of us spend our mental energy trying to turn every screw. We try to learn everything, read everything, memorize every detail indiscriminately. We're just relying on effort alone. The highly skilled learner, though, knows the key. They have the ability to select the correct screw in the mind, the precise method that unlocks the whole system.
So if you lack that method, all the effort in the world will still result in, well, low performance.
Exactly.
So if method is the key, we have to establish, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that our brains are even capable of this upgrade.
Right.
We need to just destroy that limiting belief by showing the real-life superpowers the brain already has.
This is where the source material genuinely surprised me, too.
Yeah.
These are documented case studies that just fundamentally challenge the idea that the brain is fixed or static. They show this immense potential that lies dormant in most of us.
I mean, think about the individuals who are in a coma, but are still able to communicate complex thoughts through what subtle directed mental activity.
It's incredible.
Or what about people with highly superior autobiographical memory? They can, without any prompting, recall the exact details of any specific day from age 12 onward with near-perfect accuracy. It sounds like science fiction.
It really does. And even more dramatically, the cases where someone suffers a severe head injury and then suddenly develops phenomenal genius-level ability in a field they knew nothing about, like mathematics or art.
I was genuinely shocked by that research. And the crucial lesson here isn't, to go aim for a head injury.
Right.
The lesson is that if the brain is capable of these extraordinary functions when it's pushed to extremes, it means that latent capacity is already there. We're just keeping it dormant.
And if those examples feel a bit too far out, we can look at a more everyday, hard-earned genius, the famous London taxi driver study.
Yes.
This is concrete proof that the brain is not a fixed piece of hardware. It's a dynamic, growing entity.
Absolutely. Becoming a licensed London black cab driver is a monumental intellectual task. They have to spend years learning the knowledge, memorizing tens of thousands of roads, landmarks, routes.
Across a massive, sprawling city, it's insane.
And when scientists examine these drivers, what do they find?
A physical change in their anatomy. The region of their hippocampus that's associated with navigational and spatial memory was physically larger than in the average person.
So the brain literally reshaped itself. It didn't just handle the information, it grew to accommodate the task. The sources refer to the brain not as a fixed rock, but as living soil.
That's the perfect description. And the scientific term for this capacity is neuroplasticity. To simplify it, every time you successfully learn something new, your brain is physically forging new connections, new pathways. And when you review or apply that information correctly, those connections get stronger. They become permanent.
Okay, so if the brain is constantly changing and it's capable of near limitless capacity, let's go back to the frustration. Why do we still forget so easily? If our equipment is top tier, the failure must be mechanical.
Exactly. Forgetting is almost never due to a weak brain. It's because of 3 specific, systematic failures in how we process information. We need to focus on fixing the method, not blaming ourselves.
Okay, let's detail these 3 mechanical reasons why we forget and move that focus away from self-blame. What's number 1?
Number 1 is a lack of connection. New knowledge that you learn in isolation, it has no foundation. It falls away.
So if you read some complex fact,
Yeah.
but don't actively link it to an existing idea or a memory or even a metaphor.
The brain just treats it as loose data. It's like trying to build a new wing on a house with no structural support. It's just going to collapse.
You need to create scaffolding.
Precisely. You have to actively ask, what does this remind me of? Or how is this like that other thing I know? We rarely do this active linking, so the new information fails to integrate.
Okay, what's number 2?
Lack of meaning. This one is huge. If you don't establish why this is important or where you will use it, your brain, which is extremely practical and energy conscious, will just discard it immediately.
So it's a filter.
A perfect filter. Your mind's primary function is to help you live and thrive. If information is tagged as irrelevant or just, interesting trivia, the brain flags it as clutter and performs an automatic, efficient deletion.
So in that context, forgetting is actually the brain working perfectly.
Exactly. It only retains what you signal as critical for your future.
And number 3 is the one we keep coming back to.
The self-imposed failure. The limiting belief, constantly running that background command, I have a poor memory. It prevents you from even trying to make the connections and find the meaning you need. It's the ultimate inhibitor.
Okay. But by focusing on the method, we can overcome all 3 of these failures.
Yeah.
Before we get to the practical methods, though, we need to broaden our scope a bit. Mental performance isn't just about what's inside the skull. The sources talk a lot about the second brain. What are they referring to there?
This is where we connect cognition to holistic health. You know when people talk about intuition or a gut feeling?
Sure.
It's not some mystical idea.
So what's the scientific reality of this second brain?
Your gut contains its own neural network, the enteric nervous system. And it's in constant two-way communication with your primary brain through something called the vagus nerve.
And what's most relevant for us, for learners,
The microbiome.
the trillions of bacteria living in your gut.
Exactly. The microbiome significantly influences the production of crucial neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, which dictate your mood, your focus, and that feeling of cognitive haze.
So if your diet is poor, or you're chronically stressed, or your sleep is all over the place,
The communication between these two brains just breaks down. Living haphazardly doesn't just make you tired. It results in a systemic cognitive sluggishness. The brain is literally a system that extends way beyond the skull.
that's the key takeaway then. You can have the best learning technique in the world, but if the underlying system, your body, is operating suboptimally, your mental performance is always going to be dampened.
Always.
This brings us to the most crucial, actionable part of this deep dive. The practical framework for actually taking responsibility. Because the societal context, it bans it.
The sources really drive home the urgency on this. With rapid technological change, AI, automation, the old model of learn once, used for a lifetime is dead.
Gone.
The core skill today is not necessarily what you know, but your ability to learn quickly, deeply, and actively. For continuous upgrade, we need a system.
And that system is the AIWI framework for growth. It's a 4-step framework for anyone ready to take ownership of their mental performance. So let's break down the A, awareness.
Awareness is that crucial first step of self-diagnosis. You have to recognize your current state, but without judgment. So when you feel overwhelmed, you stop and ask, am I truly overloaded? Or am I just lacking a simple method to organize this?
Or when I forget a detail, is it because my brain is weak, or because I didn't bother to establish meaning and connection?
Exactly.
And I think the simplest, most powerful act of awareness is just noticing the language you use. What are you saying to yourself every day? Are you actively listening to that internal monologue?
Yes.
Simply awakening to that self-talk, I'm not suited for this, or I'll never grasp this. That is the moment you begin to shift everything.
And that leads directly into the first I, insight.
Which is the realization of the truth we talked about earlier. The brain is always changing.
Yeah.
You are not genetically predetermined to be slow at math or bad at names. You are simply operating in a way that was inefficient or suboptimal.
The hardware is pristine. The software just needs an update.
Exactly. Next is W, wisdom. This is the application. This is choosing the right screw to turn today.
Right, based on your new awareness and insight.
So we need concrete small actions here. How does a learner immediately translate this theory into practice?
The sources suggest 3 small actions that directly counter the 3 reasons we forget. First, before you engage with new material, you have to signal meaning.
How?
Actively ask yourself, where will I use this information? So, for example, if you're learning a new historical fact, frame it like, I will use this to connect to our discussion about political cycles in my work meeting next week.
You're giving the brain a target, not just a random fact.
Right.
Okay, the second action addresses connection.
Right. While you are learning, you have to actively connect. Don't just passively read. You ask, how is this idea similar to or different from what I already know about, topic X?
So if you're learning a complex biological process,
Connect it to the mechanics of a car engine. If you create a metaphor, any metaphor, the new information instantly has that scaffolding to hold on to.
and the third action is about reinforcement. And you don't need to dedicate hours to studying.
That's right. Immediately after learning, just take 5 minutes to reinforce the connection. This could be applying the knowledge, writing a single summary sentence, or, and this is the most powerful method, teaching the concept back to someone.
Even if it's just explaining it aloud to yourself.
Especially then. That active engagement strengthens the neural pathways instantly.
Finally, we reach the last I, elimination.
Illumination is this powerful insight that mastering how to learn correctly is, well, it's fundamentally liberating.
It's not just a skill for your job.
No, it frees you from that psychological weight of feeling inadequate.
So when you overcome those limiting beliefs and you demonstrate mastery over your own mind, you can rescue yourself from that self-imposed intellectual ceiling. You go from being a passive recipient of information to an active architect of your own knowledge.
And this illumination, it often extends outward. You find yourself able to help others who are trapped by that same sense of inferiority just by showing them the method.
That brings us full circle. You, the listener, you already possess the superpower, your brain. The entire issue rests not on the quality of the device, but on how you operate it, and critically, what you choose to believe about it.
And out of all the screws you can turn, all the methods you can implement, the sources highlight one simple, high-leverage decision. It acts as the biggest catalyst for change.
What is that most important decision?
It is a deliberate change in your language, one that shifts your identity and alters the brain's fundamental command structure. Stop using the fixed, limiting identity you installed maybe decades ago. Stop saying, I'm forgetful.
And instead, start using language that reflects the reality of neuroplasticity and method.
Start saying, I am learning how to remember. That decision alone immediately shifts you from a fixed state of weakness to an active, responsible path of mastery. You're now responsible for the method, not the deficiency. That change in direction, that is the beginning of the upgrade.